Thank you, Philip. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks to Philip's invitation and Professor Chang invitation to this. I head up the enterprise group for Singtel and the country chief officer for Singtel for the Singapore operations. What I'm going to do is to share with you some of this sort of practical learnings that Singtel as a service provider have gone through over the number of years, especially in the area around this building and enabling smart cities in the region and supporting the Smart Nations plans in Singapore. We've also done a series of key learnings in the region and also other parts of the other regions, not just in Asia Pacific, to understand what's happening and then to look at some of the key learnings there. And I'll talk about that and look at some of the technologies and services that we are testing and deploying, and then to be able to co-create and work with the industry as well to try and bring value together to enable this vision that we have and the cities in the region here. As we know, smart cities are a big agenda. Likewise, Singapore, we've announced plans to be the first nation in the world to be a smart nation. And we hear this of many cities. About 54% of people, the population globally, lived in urban areas. And this number will grow up to about 66% by the year 2030, and all live in these urban areas. And you see what's happened is these cities are all getting a tremendous pressure from the infrastructure and to be able to support the population growth. And a number of them have, started this whole sort of transition into becoming cities that are more efficient to cater to the citizens and its residents. We know also, looking at what's happening, there are currently about 21 of these smart cities in development. We studied a number of them. There will be probably up to 88 in the next few years. A large number of them happening in Asia, a large number of them in China. So exciting developments over here. Some of the characteristics that we see in smart nations as we study these models across the globe, we find that they are really, and I'm sure all of you can associate with this, tremendous opportunities where these cities engage their citizens, very active participation in, with the citizens and with the residents. And whether be it in the case of Amsterdam, in the case of San Francisco, we see them as really global leaders in enabling this, tremendous open platforms that allow their citizens to be able to co-create and to be able to deliver applications and services with the municipal, their cities. And so there is a lot of this private-public sector collaboration, a lot of co-creation. We see in Amsterdam's case, for example, the Apps for Amsterdam platform, the Amsterdam Open, portal allows these people to all contribute. The public servants would, have a certain problem to solve. They would issue a certain challenge, and then the public would respond. A lot of them in the sustainability area, in Amsterdam especially. In San Francisco, we see that as well. In the area around green movement, the use of electric vehicles, for example, very big, and no wonder because it's the home of Tesla and many more of this. So, likewise, in creating all these opportunities, this acts, that there is an increasing opportunity to create these startups. We know in the Smart Nation vision of what the IDA and the SMPO office is looking at, there is tremendous excitement and of having a lot of these startups in play, and we're engaged a number of them through our venture capitalist funds. And we see this as a huge opportunity, not just in enabling this vision for Singapore as a smart nation, but also attracting a lot of the sort of global talent leaders into this space and continue to make it into a very vibrant ecosystem. So a tremendous opportunity, and I believe IDA and SMPU have done a number of key things right as we briefed and very closely engaged with them. And I think from the vision execution towards that vision, I'm very very upbeat that we have a tremendous opportunity to be that nation in the world to be first as an entire nation. Okay? So a lot of opportunities to create new industries, to create new talent, skills, to create vibrant services for citizens. I'll deep dive into a few of these that we spent time and looked at specifically 3 examples and where people are engaged on and looking at very closely, and a number of these I visited as well. In Amsterdam's case, it's really a lot on the social engagement, a lot in the green movement. The Europeans are very big into this, whether be it using these open platforms, the Amsterdam Open, Apps for Amsterdam, to create these application services to allow monitoring of the neighborhoods, pollution-related areas, looking at the schools, good schools around there, people wanting to be located and living near there, and then a lot of user-generated information to engage the public, and a lot of again contributions. Very keys in the area around the energy, the smart grids that they've done. Again, allowing this open access to create the whole energy usage and the carbon footprint agenda. It's a very, very big one as the Europeans try to move towards a zero carbon footprint. In the case of San Francisco, again, a lot of good examples there. Main thing, it's in the areas around collaboration, in the areas around the green movement, use of electric vehicles I mentioned. Also in terms of allowing the people in the cities to be able to get information and to be able to make tremendous decisions in terms of what are some of the public policies they should be making to cater to the needs of its citizens. In the area around the parks, the SF Park, again they look at using that to engage and have Americans to visit and to really enjoy not just all this stuff about driving economic value, but also the quality of life and making sure the utilization of some of their the park investments as well. So again, very good open platform. Those 2 examples in terms of getting the right information to the ecosystem and getting the ecosystem to participate actively, co-create, and engage in creating value. So San Francisco also a lot of interesting business model startups that are starting to from then the birth of that and expanding beyond San Francisco. Korea, I was just there in a couple of months ago. Again, tremendous. I know there was an earlier speaker who was talking about Korea. This one I visited personally as well. And the feedback I've seen, in Songdo, looking at how they build the entire city, which is in the Incheon Free Economic Zone, just by the airport. A green field build-up. In Seoul, which is very impressive, 10 over million people. This is their command center. It's called the control tower of looking at the transportation. Unlike the other 2, it tends to be more horizontal. This is in the area of transportation. This is the command center. It's a basement 3 of the Seoul City Hall, and it's actually, when we went in there, it's a big vault, ENT protected vault. And I was talking to the leader there, who works in the mayor's office, saying that this is prepared for all contingencies. And basically, the top piece is the traffic operation information system, the command center. They were walking through, taking us through the implementations from the command center right down to the bus stops, to the infrastructure in the buses. Amazing things in terms of, there are about 8,000 over bus stops in the city of Seoul. 1,000 of them are smart bus stops with the digital signages, all the information you can get. And, the key info there is allowing people to understand those buses that's coming in, understanding what kind of capacity that they have and when do you take those buses, and to be able to reroute. And not forgetting Seoul, it's not one bus operator, there are many bus operators, and to be able to coordinate that across many different operators in a way to deliver those enhanced services, it's quite a feat for the Koreans. The other beauty of this, it's not just buses, it's taxis and transport in terms of subway and trains. They're all tightly integrated. So they have one fare that you can actually move around, and use the different transport means to get. If it's one that's congested, you can go to the train and then you could get to point A, point B very effectively. Another thing that they showed was this big command center in Topis. where they have the means to predict the flow of Seoul's traffic 1 hour ahead of schedule. They were able to just show that based on previous data that they collected over 5 years, and also based on cameras that they have on the Seoul traffic highway, they were able to paint out and say 1 hour's time, this is what the traffic conditions will be like, and therefore they start to implement some of these traffic congestion measures 1 hour ahead of the congestion to move the traffic to certain places and all that. So amazing stuff, and they were showing that this whole visualization of how the traffic would ease as they try to implement those green lights, red lights, fast lanes and all that. And they've got this whole what they call the illegal parking management system, which is manned by no one, the system completely, using cameras mounted in the street lamps, mount cameras in the buses as they take pictures, and also cameras in vehicles that will move around. And this system basically highlights to people if your car is parked wrongly, illegally, or not in the proper position, you get an SMS and they say you get that. And then you don't remove it in 10 minutes time, you get a fine issued to you. So, again, the Koreans have done quite a fair bit in this transportation area. So basically, there are many examples. I can, cite Boston. We've seen, a number of them in the Chinese cities, albeit the green fields. But some of the key learnings, I wanted to offer 3 main areas here. And with these key learnings, how are we positioning ourselves as a service provider? And we think that some of these services, innovations, technologies we're deploying could really apply to a number of these smart cities to enable them. One is this whole thing around right-time data versus real-time data. I know a lot of talk has been given around the real-time, looking at the flow and barrage of information, plethora of just information that's gathered. And the key is, the right-time data we feel that's increasingly important. By that, what we mean is, if you look at, as an operator, for example, we, do a lot of contracting of our services with our clients, customers, consumers. And, we have a lot of data about that, and we use those data analytics to, for, making sure that we contract the customer at the right time. And we know that you never go out there and contract with the customer when he or she has got a bad network experience and you contract the next day. So we know, when, by looking at that, and we know that when they are delighted, sensing some of this social, data that comes in, that's the right time to move in. And then looking at what services they have today, what sort of services that we should be thinking about them tomorrow to bundle them, add value. So the right time data are very key, right? Just to make sure that we understand the context of what the municipal agent or municipal official is looking to solve, and the context of that, and asking the right time data. Designing a new highway, the Northeast Line, for example, getting real time data may solve certain things, but it won't give you the right context. Understanding the commuter flow in terms of what's happening around the island, what times of the day, and where people are flowing, looking at their mobile patterns, becomes really key for us. And as we look at this piece, it allows us to gather a lot of insights there. It allows us to drive prediction, right? Just like what the Seoul traffic monitoring system is. By looking at different times of the day, looking at the data that's collected over a number of years, they are able to say within this hour, with this kind of traffic condition, real time and measure at right time, they're able to really pin up and say, I think we're going to have a situation here in an hour's time, right? And then how do you make those decisions to ease that, right? So retail as well. So real time data, obviously, it's also important as we look at location-based services in terms of what's the whole flow pattern of information through our mobile networks. We're able to then sense and look at, with that, whether it's retail stores, how to drive traffic to retail stores, working with people in the retail sector becomes really key. So a lot of sort of discussions around this right time versus real time data. And very important, as we look at data sources as a service provider, we actually have tremendous inputs, and not just because of the mobile networks, because also technologies that we've invested and acquired. And two of this is in the area around video analytics, we have companies that we own that does video analytics with video cameras that we deploy with the public safety officials. And how do we use this, camera footages, does the analytics, and combining it with, the Wi-Fi data, the mobile data, base stations, mobile data, and then what's called later on an area which is increasingly very important called the social media data. By combining all these sources, 4 or 5 sources, right? Today we have the means to get Wi-Fi data, mobile data, video analytics, and then finally with the social analytics. Social analytics. And with those 4 plus customer data, it allows us to do a lot of things for the customer to help them predict, understand, what's happening in the sort of environment, and help them to proactively, make some of these key decisions, or help them handle these complex events that's happening there. So we combine all these sources of data for the customers, and we're deploying this as one of our key capabilities. So this whole multi-dimensional insights to a barrage of data and trying to merge it together into a command center view, it's one of the key offerings that we are building to help city officials to be able to get a sense of what's happening, and also to make a sense of what are some of the policies, and not just city officials, but also to businesses starting to get heavy interest from enterprises looking at in the transport sector, in the hospitality sector, retail sectors. We've been asked, in the airline sector as well. Tremendous interest in what's happening in that space. I'll show you a video of how we're using this data in an event that happened in Singapore. This is around the F1 event, and we'll show you what networks that we're using and how we're using this mobile data in getting some insights for some of the people that's involved with this, stakeholders of the country. All anonymized data. So sort of implementations for a number of large enterprises in terms of getting insights on the flow of public and people, all again anonymized data to make sure that the privacy is all maintained. So the other key technology investments that we've made, it's an Israeli technology company that we bought. to push us and enable us to get into great insights in social data analytics. It's a technology company called Quantera, which has the means to ingest tremendous data. You can see the stats here, I won't cover them. And to be able to, within 3 seconds, 2 seconds, to spill up exactly what the sentiment is about in your, what the public talks about your product, your brand, your service offering, how do you compare with your company's brand versus another brand, what do they like about it and don't, when iPhone 6 was launched versus Samsung Galaxy, what are some of the pluses and minuses. We could see that, and it's all in a matter of seconds, ingestion of all this data. So very powerful, and we're combining this not just as a standalone, but looking at the mobile data, looking at the Wi-Fi, and also, mashing up with the customer data. You could imagine the applications could be repurposed for many, many sort of users. So, example of what we've done here is looking at the F1 season, looking at, this is data on the last F1, which is sponsored by Singapore Airlines. Looking at, the blue line about the public sentiments of the F1, how it peaks during the F1 period, a lot of interest, excitement, people feeding back. And if we were to click at this, we can really see what is the discussion, the topics that people would like to delve into. People are talking about, their experiences and all that. So we could literally go down and pick this up from the social media, the sentiments, right? And, the green line would be what's really the feedback on the main sponsor, Singapore Airlines, right? Which you can see over here, there is little correlation on the sponsorship there. And by the way, Singtel also sponsored this last 6 years. It's the same data, I must say. Okay, this is not picking on Singapore Airlines, a good client of ours. When we did this, it was the same feedback. Okay, so I told the Singapore Airlines CEO, no worries, we went through the same thing. But really, if you look at this, you do see that, the Grand Prix, but then if you look at really the key beneficiary of this is Singapore. This data shows, the green line is about Singapore getting the key beneficiary being, the city comes live, a lot of talk about Singapore and how F1 has benefited this versus the F1 event in blue over there. So you can see, the peaks and all that will show you, right? And for that, you can then say, is it, worthwhile sponsoring this? Who is the key beneficiary and what should we be doing? Business models to share this. So all this data, like I said, it's the ability to pull all this in through billions of web pages and in seconds build this up to really say what exactly is happening to your brand, your product, your service, your customer experience versus your competitor or another country or whatever. So tremendous insight over here. Again, do not look at this being a standalone. We use the 4 sources of what we have with video, with Wi-Fi, with mobile data, with social data, and we merge this together with the customer analytics, and then we help customers see the insights and understand the challenges in the face. So these are already things that we're doing, and starting to make this as a key practice. Let me shift to this third point. I talked about right time versus real-time data. I talked about this thing about multi-dimensional data insights coming in, and how do you make sense of that with a huge information overload. This is, as people implement, and city officials implement smart nation, smart cities around, one of the key challenges is this whole area around cybersecurity. Our Prime Minister alluded about that in his speech in November. This is a major area of concern as information gets aggregated together to drive smart city implementations. The surface area of attack, actually grows a lot, and if it's not safeguarded properly, it could be really a compromise. There'll be breaches, and the impact of these breaches will be tremendous. Not just talking about the cyber attacks. We know what happened to Stuxnet, and even critical infrastructure could be disrupted, and nuclear power stations, are disrupted. So these are things that's happened the last 2-3 years ago, Stuxnet. So critical infrastructure, information like health data, student scores, that's aggregated, it's not protected, and we know this is a world that is actually increasingly more and more challenges. A lot of technologies that was designed, built to protect the enterprise, it's actually starting to have a lot of loopholes. Many of them can't deal with, and we've seen, the impact on Sony. We've seen, despite of the first hack, the second hack, they were, hacked again. I can bet you there will be some more, because the threats are evolving so fast, and the threat actors are very, very sophisticated and a lot more focused, and they can come at any point versus you having to guard this 7x24. A new series of threats we see, what's called the advanced persistent threats. It's probably the most difficult to deal with. Many enterprises there's two types of enterprises, they say. Those who have been breached and those who have been breached and know about it. We know in Asia Pacific, 95%, through working with our technology partners, 95% of companies out of 1,600 we surveyed have been breached. Okay, 95%. Okay, where the question is whether they know about it and how soon they know and handle this. In the case of Sony and the case of Target, you can imagine, a lot of information lost already by then. Target's case. This is an average out of 1,600 companies we studied, 229 days on average, median, that they found out that they'd been breached. And by the time they found out they'd been breached, it took them another 90 days to go out there and basically to remediate. And so it's almost a year's gone. And you can imagine these breaches are in the system, what would happen with those information losses. And in the context of a smart city, what would happen? Right, so the stats are all there. And many of them, we realize, JP Morgan and the likes of many of them have invested tremendous amount of money in cybersecurity defenses and yet face these challenges. And we can expect this to be a huge growing trend. Just to share, some of this, I thought I would just get my colleague to just demonstrate to you in closing the kind of threats we're dealing. And this is an ethical hacking kind of means to show you how these hackers can come in without you detecting them and yet be able to take those data. With that, let me just invite my colleague Loki out on stage just to demonstrate a couple of 5 minutes to send on the point.
Thanks, Lou. Hi everyone. My name is Loki. I'm Director of Enterprise Security. So what we will do in the next 5 to 10 minutes is to give you a first-hand perspective of what it really is like when someone is being hacked by what in a public domain known as advanced persistent threat. So we'll have two demonstrations. The first demonstration is on advanced persistent threat attack on a laptop PC. Right? So what we have done is we have set up two virtual machines, which we'll show you later. And one is the attacker, the other is the victim. And the attacker is going to send an email to the victim, and the victim will unknowingly open up the email, read the attachment, and unbeknownst to the victim, she will have downloaded a malicious software that would connect back to the attacker. And from that point, in the hacker vernacular, the victim is being owned by the hacker. Right? So just switch over. Okay. So as you can see here, we have these two virtual machines. Okay, attacker and victim. Okay, so let's, in the interest of time, we'll just assume that the victim has already received the email, and this is the one. And let's just say the victim in this case is the HR director of a research and development company. Right? So this is a typical email that you would receive every day. I should just open up the email. Now, as I'm opening up and reading the email, I'd like you to pay attention to this little box over here. This is the attack tool. It is known as GhostWrite. It is a very common tool a lot of hackers like to use, and you can actually download this for a small fee in the public domain actually. So, of course, I'm not advocating that. Now, let's just open this file. It's a Word document, as you can see. It looks like a CV. And as the person is reading this document, you know that something has popped up over here. So now I can just close this document, and even if this person would reboot the computer, this connection is still persistent, right? So this is actually the IP address of the victim's computer. So at this point, the hacker has really taken ownership of the victim's computer. So what can the hacker do? Well, quite a lot of things, as you can see in these menu over here. First, there's a thing called File Manager. So this looks like the Windows Explorer, where you can go in and look for files. So the bottom half is actually the victim's computer. And I'm just going in there to the desktop. And you can see that there are these files over here that reflect over here. And so the hacker can easily just choose, okay, this one looks interesting, confidential something. Top secret, very convenient name for the hacker. As they copy the files, it just appears onto the desktop, right? So you can see that, what is this file? Okay, so this happens to be the blueprint for the next generation jet engine that this company would have spent tens of years, billions of dollars designing, and the hacker has stolen it in a matter of seconds. Right? What else can the hacker do? Well, let's see. This looks very interesting. I'll try and open it up. Okay, it is a PDF. Very cleverly, the victim has put a password to it. So the attacker can actually brute force the password, but these days there's a much more convenient way. So let's come into here. And then you can see there's this called keylogger, right? So just pay attention to this gray box over here. So one of these days, the victim has to open up the same file. So she opens up the file, is challenged for the password, she keys in the password. Notice the gray box. It is captured in real time. Right? So all the hacker has to do is to copy and just paste this in. And there you go. Right? So it is that easy. Okay. And by the way, we have installed all the known antivirus software onto this machine here, and it's none the wiser. So just one final demonstration of what this tool can do. Now, typically, director of HR would go to board meetings, right? Well, it so happens the hacker can actually turn on the camera of the victim. So when she is in a board meeting, everything that's visible, everything that's heard is actually captured, right? M&A discussions, whatever have you. Okay, so there you go. Right, that's the first demonstration. Now, the second demonstration that I have is around how you can quite easily intercept SMS messages, okay, as well as line, picture messages, and so forth from somebody. So give me a minute. I noticed that the done a control. Just very quickly set this up so you can see my phone on the same screen. Just projecting this phone onto the screen so it's easier for you to see. There you go. Okay, so this is my phone. It's running on Android. And so what I'm going to do now is I will use my regular phone, which I hope has not been hacked already, to send an SMS to this phone. So this is a typical SMS that you would receive when you're going to connect into your bank, right? Bank online system. Okay. Okay, there you go. Messages come in. So let's see. Oops. Where's messages? Okay. And it says, oh, my one-time password is whatever. So the hacker has actually intercepted this password already. Okay, and just have to come into this website and refresh data, and you can see that it's actually captured here. Okay, so this, and well, just in case you're wondering how this happens, earlier this morning I have actually downloaded a software known as Horo Today. It's actually a little application that one of our colleagues in Thailand has written. I don't know how many people read Thai over here. I think it says in Thai, your secrets will be revealed. Okay, so very apt name for this application. So that is all we have to share.